She was only a passenger in 13F, quiet, almost invisible among the rows of tired travelers as the aircraft droned through the upper layers of the atmosphere. The hum of engines was steady, and most passengers had surrendered to drowsiness. But when the captain's voice cracked through the intercom, urgent, clipped, every soul on board froze. Attention passengers. If there are any combat pilots among you, we need your help. Confused whispers rippled down the cabin. A middle-aged man in 21C laughed nervously. A woman clutched her child. Most dismissed it as some bizarre drill. But in seat 13F, a woman with sharp, unreadable eyes closed her book, set it aside, and exhaled slowly. Her hand trembled, not with fear, but with the weight of recognition. The call sign. She had buried it years ago, left behind the hangars, the roar of engines, and the smell of jet fuel. She had sworn never to answer again. But above the clouds, silence held the cabin like a vice. She reached up, pressed the attendant button, and with a low voice said, "Tell the captain, Falcon is here." The flight attendant blinked. "I'm sorry, Falcon." "Yes," she said, her tone like steel. "He'll know." Moments later, a uniformed first officer came rushing down the aisle, his face pale but lit with something like hope. "Ma'am, your call sign. Did you say Falcon?" Her nod was small, deliberate. Within minutes, she was escorted through the narrow passage to the cockpit. Behind the reinforced door, alarms blinked red across the control panels. The captain glanced at her, disbelief etched into his weathered features. "Falcon? You retired years ago. How?" "No time for questions," she interrupted. Her eyes scanned the radar screen. 2 blips. Fast movers closing in. She knew the pattern instantly. Not training. Not a drill. Someone had vectored fighters into commercial airspace. And then it came, static across the radio, followed by a chilling transmission in clipped tones. "Unidentified commercial flight. Reduce altitude immediately and prepare to divert course. Noncompliance will be treated as hostile." The captain's knuckles whitened on the yoke. "They're armed." She leaned closer, her pulse steady despite the chaos. "Those are F-22 Raptors. And they're not here for an escort." Her voice dropped into the timbre of command she thought she had buried with her past life. "Patch me through. Now." The captain hesitated only a second before flipping the switch. She inhaled, every nerve alive, then spoke into the mic, clear and deliberate. "Raptor lead, this is Falcon." A stunned silence crackled through the frequency. Then came the reply, disbelief heavy in the pilot's voice. "Falcon? Impossible, you're alive." She cut him off. "And you will not fire on this plane." The passengers behind the door had no idea that their fate balanced on an old ghost resurfacing from the clouds. Her hand hovered over the comm, her mind racing through classified protocols she never thought she'd need again. The voice on the other end finally steadied. "Orders are orders, Falcon. Stand down." Her jaw tightened. She knew that tone. Whoever was flying lead, she had trained him once. His voice was unmistakable. The irony was brutal, her protégé now aiming weapons at hundreds of civilians. Her gaze flicked to the radar, then to the captain. "We've got less than 3 minutes before they lock in hard. If I can't turn him, we don't walk away." And so, with the cabin blissfully ignorant, she spoke again into the silence of the skies, her words now threading between authority, memory, and something dangerously close to desperation. "Raptor lead, listen to me. You remember Red Sands. You remember who pulled you out when your bird was spiraling. You owe me. Stand down." The radio hissed, the only sound the distant thrum of engines and the heartbeats of everyone in the cockpit. Then, faintly, a second voice broke in over the channel. "Falcon, is it really you?" It was the wingman. Younger, uncertain. And that sliver of hesitation was all she needed. She straightened, voice low but cutting like a blade. "If you fire, you'll be writing history in blood. And you'll remember that Falcon warned you." The silence that followed was suffocating. But the blips on the radar kept closing. The cockpit seemed to shrink with each passing second, every light blinking more urgently, every beep sharper than the last. Outside, the night sky was endless, streaked only by the faint trail of contrails cutting toward them at supersonic speed. The captain's breathing grew shallow, his hands glued to the controls, though there was nothing he could do to outrun what was bearing down. The first officer glanced at Falcon, his eyes wide, searching her face for something, courage, maybe, or salvation. "Talk to them," the captain urged, his voice rough. She pressed the transmit button again, forcing her tone into calm, unflinching control. "Raptor lead, this is Falcon. You stand down now. Do you copy?" For a long moment, static filled the channel, and then his voice came back, clipped, uncertain. "We have direct orders from command. Your aircraft is flagged as compromised. Non-compliance isn't an option." Her eyes narrowed. Compromised. The word burned through her. She had heard it before, in darker times, when innocent lives were marked as expendable because someone somewhere misread data or wanted a convenient cover story. She knew the way those orders were written, cold, detached, signed in ink by people who would never sit in these seats. "You've got bad intel," she shot back. "Look at your transponder readouts. Check the manifest if you can. This is a commercial airliner with families, children. If you fire, you're murdering civilians." Another pause. The wingman's voice cracked in, younger, thinner. "Lead, I'm picking up standard civilian patterns. It looks clean." "Orders," the lead snapped, but the edge in his voice betrayed him. Falcon closed her eyes just for a heartbeat, remembering his face, years younger, sweat-streaked in the Nevada desert. His first solo in an F-22, when he nearly lost control in a hard bank. She had been in his ear then, calm, patient, pulling him back from panic. "Ease her in, breathe, trust your hands," she had said. He had listened. He had lived. Now he was out here, with a missile lock lined up on her. She leaned into the mic, lowering her voice until it carried the weight of something more personal than protocol. "Eagle, I know it's you. Don't pretend I don't. You still twitch your right hand when you're nervous. You still hum through the comm when you think no one's listening. Don't you dare tell me you've forgotten." The silence that followed was longer, heavier, more dangerous than any missile. Then his voice, softer. "Falcon, what are you doing on that plane?" "Trying to survive," she said. "Same as these people. You've got a choice. You can follow blind orders, or you can follow the truth." The wingman's voice cracked through again, nervous, almost pleading. "Lead, we can call this in. Reconfirm. Get clarity." But she knew there wasn't time. The lock-on alarms in the cockpit were already shrieking, a warning that their window was narrowing. The captain shot her a desperate look, sweat rolling down his temple. "They're seconds away from a hard lock. What do we do?" Falcon's hand hovered over the comm, steady despite the chaos building around her. She had been here before, in other skies, with other lives at stake. The difference was that back then she had control of the aircraft, of the fight. Now, she was a passenger, wielding only her voice and the past she thought she had buried. "Eagle," she said firmly, "remember Red Sands? You were spiraling out of control and I pulled you back. I didn't let you crash. Don't make me regret saving you." The captain's eyes flicked to the radar. The blips were closer now, right on top of them. The pressure in the cockpit was suffocating, the weight of hundreds of lives pressing against Falcon's spine. And then, through the static, his voice again, quieter, ragged with conflict. "Falcon, if I disobey, it's my career. Maybe worse." Her reply came, without hesitation. "Better your career than their lives." The wingman broke in, urgent. "Lead, if we fire, we'll be court-martialed when this comes out. You know it will. The press, the world, they'll find out. We'll burn with it." The tension cracked like lightning across the frequency. Every heartbeat in the cockpit seemed to sync with the rising whine of the lock warning. The captain gripped the yoke tighter, his lips moving silently, as though in prayer. Finally, Eagle's voice returned, stripped of its earlier confidence. "Falcon, God help me, but I trust you." The lock alarm abruptly cut off. The blips held distance. They didn't vanish, but they stopped closing. The captain let out a shaky exhale, collapsing back in his seat. The first officer muttered something under his breath, maybe a thank you, maybe just disbelief. Falcon didn't relax. Her eyes were still on the radar, her mind still calculating, still wary. "Lead," she said carefully. "You've done the right thing. Stay high, shadow us if you must, but you will not fire. I'll answer for it. You hear me?" "Copy," came the reply, heavy with resignation. But then, another voice cut across the channel, cold, commanding, and unfamiliar. "This is command. Falcon, you are unauthorized on that frequency. Cease transmission immediately." Her stomach tightened. She hadn't expected command to step in this soon. If they were listening, then everything was about to spiral in directions she couldn't predict. The captain's eyes darted to her. "What now?" Falcon pressed the mic again. Her tone sharpened to a razor's edge. "Command, this is Falcon. You've flagged the wrong bird. This aircraft is clean. If you push this, you'll have a massacre on your hands, and it'll be on your record forever." Static. Then a reply, colder still. "Falcon, you are compromised. Stand down or be treated as hostile yourself." Her pulse spiked, but her voice didn't waver. "You know who I am. You know what I've seen, what I know. If you want to bury this, you'll have to explain why you tried to execute a civilian flight in international airspace." The channel went dead silent. The only sound in the cockpit was the muted gasp of the first officer and the endless, steady whine of engines cutting through the dark. Then, faint but steady, Eagle's voice returned, not to command but directly to her. "Falcon, what's really going on?" She hesitated, just a fraction, then said, "Something bigger than you realize. They're using you. And if we survive tonight, you'll see exactly how deep it goes." The hum of the engines carried a kind of eerie calm, as though the world itself was holding its breath. The passengers sat just feet away, blissfully unaware of how close they had come to vanishing into a plume of fire and steel. In the cockpit, though, every soul felt the razor's edge of the moment. The blips on the radar were still there, steady and menacing, shadows of power held at bay only by a fragile thread of trust. Falcon's eyes locked on the screen, her jaw set in iron resolve. She knew command wasn't finished. She had played this game before, seen the way shadow orders worked, the way truth was twisted into silence. They didn't want her voice on this frequency. They didn't want her alive to remind them of the promises and betrayals that lingered in the dark corners of classified halls. The radio crackled again, sharper this time. "Raptor lead, this is command. Neutralize target immediately. That is a direct order." Every muscle in the cockpit tensed. The first officer whispered, "They're going to force him." The captain glanced helplessly at Falcon, sweat gleaming on his temple. But her gaze stayed locked on the radar, her expression unreadable. And then, across the channel, Eagle's voice came back, louder, firmer than before. "Negative, command. This aircraft is clean. I will not fire." The silence that followed was volcanic, pulsing with the weight of mutiny. Then command's voice, icy with fury. "Raptor lead, confirm refusal." "I confirm," Eagle said, his voice like steel. The wingman spoke next, shaky but resolute. "Wingman confirms. Standing with lead." The cockpit erupted with a collective exhale. Falcon allowed herself the briefest flicker of relief, but she knew the battle wasn't over. Command would not forgive open defiance. Somewhere, on some encrypted line, someone was already writing the end of Eagle's career, and possibly his freedom. She pressed the mic once more. "Eagle, listen to me. You've just painted a target on your back. Both of you. But tonight you chose right." His reply came soft, almost reverent. "Because you taught me how." The words struck deeper than she expected, unearthing something she had buried long ago. The reason she had trained, flown, fought. It was never medals or glory. It was the people who lived because she dared. Command broke through once more, venom now dripping through every syllable. "Falcon, You will answer for this insubordination." Her laughter, low, bitter, and sharp, cracked across the cockpit like lightning. "You've been trying to bury me for years. But here I am, still alive, still speaking. You want to silence me? You'll have to explain to the world why two of your best just refused to slaughter innocents." For a long beat, there was nothing but static. Then the channel cut, dead silent. Whoever sat behind the desk had chosen retreat for now. The Raptors stayed close, guardians turned from executioners. Outside, the faint silver gleam of their wings caught the moonlight, and for the first time, Falcon saw them not as threats but as shields, standing between her people and the abyss. The captain turned toward her, his voice hushed with awe. "You just saved us all." But she shook her head. "No, they did. I only reminded them who they were." The minutes stretched into hours as the flight pushed on across the dark expanse. By the time they descended toward the city lights below, the passengers stirred, stretching, laughing softly, blissfully unaware of how close the night had come to swallowing them whole. When the wheels finally kissed the runway, applause broke out in the cabin, as it often does at safe landings. But for Falcon, the sound was different, haunting, ironic. If they only knew what those claps were really celebrating. As the aircraft taxied, the captain leaned closer. "Falcon, what happens now?" She stared out the window, watching the Raptors peel away, vanishing into the darkness that had birthed them. "Now," she said quietly, "the real fight begins." When the jet bridge connected and the passengers began shuffling into the terminal, Falcon lingered, waiting until the last child had passed, the last suitcase wheeled away. She stepped into the fluorescent light of the airport, every sense alert. Already, she felt it, the eyes. Men in plain suits standing too still, watching too closely. They knew she had resurfaced. She adjusted the strap of her bag, her heart steady. She had spent years running from the shadow of Falcon, from the call sign that once defined her. But tonight had proven something undeniable. The world still needed Falcon, whether she wanted it or not. A voice called out behind her. She turned to see Eagle, no helmet, no mask, just a man now, walking through the terminal in a crisp uniform, his face caught between relief and ruin. His eyes found hers, burning with the knowledge of what they had just done. "You know they won't let this go," he said quietly. "I know," she replied. "Then what?" Falcon looked past him, through the glass walls to the horizon painted with the first blush of dawn. The night was ending, but the war, the hidden war, was just beginning. She allowed a thin, wry smile. "Then we make sure the truth flies higher than their lies." For a moment, they stood there in silence, two soldiers bound not by orders, but by the choice to defy them. And as the sun rose, spilling fire across the sky, Falcon felt it burn into her bones. The world believed she had disappeared, a ghost erased from the skies. But ghosts had a way of haunting. Tonight, she had been only a passenger in 13F. Tomorrow, she would be something else entirely. The call sign they had tried to bury was alive again, etched into the sky, whispered across the airwaves, waiting to strike when the shadows grew too bold. Falcon was back, and the world would never be the same.